Great pleasure to welcome Lesley Gregory, the chairman of Memery Crystal, who's going to sit here. We're going to welcome Sam Smith back to the stage, Linzi Boyd, who's the co-founder and CEO of Bob School, and Joanna Santinon, who's the partner and EY host this morning, and also a member of the 30% Club Steering Committee. Please do come and take a seat. Another big round of applause, everybody, before right. Just I'd like to just get some takes on the conversation so far. Maybe Joanna, we could start with you and your thoughts. You've been mentioned a few times.
I think it's very interesting. For me, I've spent, as Helena said, I've spent 8 years working with the 30% Club and focusing on the non-boards, and probably 5 or 6 years now actually working with female entrepreneurs. I run our Entrepreneur of the Year programme here in the UK. And it's one of the reasons why we wanted to work on this today. Because I think it is the biggest challenge that we face, and when I look at our Entrepreneur of the Year programme, is finding women, who actually are scaling, but even when they are scaling, being prepared to put themselves forward and showcase themselves and be a role model for other people coming through.
Right.
So the face of entrepreneurship often doesn't look female to younger females coming through.
Right, we might go into that in a minute in terms of some of the unreasonable pressures, but just a quick one, just a supplementary. You've gone from a position where you're looking at FTSE 100, Corinthian pillars, grown-up companies, let's have 30% female founders, to the entrepreneur vibe. What's the difference? Is there one?
To be honest, no, I don't think there is one. I think a lot of the challenges that women face
are
the same.
So it's not better to be, it's as good to be a female entrepreneur as it is to be a female corporate leader.
Yeah, I think if you're a female entrepreneur, your life is in your own hands a little bit more. If you're a female entrepreneur, you have a little bit more control. But I think a lot of the issues are the same. A lot of the issues that women face in juggling lives, work, balance are the same wherever you sit.
Right, Linzi, do you accept that? I mean, is it sort of, I mean, first of all, from the perspective of what you do, I mean, you often hear that the entrepreneur community, it's such a vibrant sort of go-getting part of the UK economy.
Yeah.
Is it a great place for female leaders to thrive?
Look, I am a serial entrepreneur. I left school at 15 and I started my first business at the age of 18. And I got onto my second business at the age of 21, which I sold to Caterpillar at the age of 24. And so my third business was when I was 24, building other people's businesses, and when my friends were going to university. And so I only know the entrepreneur mindset. And yet I've worked a lot with people in the corporate space now, from female leaders that have come. And I have to say, I find the juggle from the entrepreneur woman and the female woman in the corporate space incredibly similar.
Incredibly similar.
You know, the only difference, I suppose, is that the entrepreneur woman has the freedom and flexibility of kind of not having to clock in and clock out with a timeline of like holidays and so forth. But they all work incredibly long hours. They're all trying to juggle balls. You're working in the morning, you're working in the evening, and you're trying to schedule things around life.
Okay, Sam, your take on this at the moment?
So our main issue is, I mean, our job is accessing capital, promoting stories, advising on growth capital, and we just don't see enough women. And what we do see, we have 120 clients, all of which are publicly listed. 0 are run by a woman. We have a private division who raises growth capital for private companies. Very few. I mean, I actually can't think of one that's run by a woman. So this is really part of this, is to encourage people to get more women who have gone on the journey to talk about how difficult it is, all those misconceptions, I was scared, and make it a real tangible thing that you could aim for and is possible. And it's so full of jargon, and what we're trying to do and what's come out of the more events we do, the more we need to make it jargon-free, really female-friendly, and really...
Do you recognise the point on the last panel that it's just too risky? In fact, that actually one of the big reasons why this is there.
Everything's risky, but this feels more risky because the understanding is not there as much. So if you're talking about growing into a new market, you go and research it, you go and do stuff, you can talk to people, you can find out. If you want to find out about growth capital, and where are all the other women that have done it? Where do you go to talk to people? Where do you go to the advisor with all the forms of capital, which is the right one? And don't just get landed with someone who's going to go, yeah, that's great for you, because that's the only one I know. It's really hard.
Lesley, your opening thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, as I was one of the youngest corporate partners in very much of a man's world, and I then took over running my law firm at 2010 after we've had the financial crisis. So I've always been passionate about helping women in my profession and also my clients. And like Sam, sadly, you know, I've worked in this industry for 30 years, and I can in one hand number the number of female CEOs that I've advised over the years, and large and small. So,
but it does beg the question of, if you've done it, what?
Well, in my profession, things are changing,
right.
which is good. There are a lot more. I mean, large firms have got senior partners who are women. There are more CEOs coming through of law firms, and we are battling hard to address the diversity issue in law firms, and mentoring has been a big part of that. And then, so what I'd like to do is translate that to help growing businesses, because I see, and I'm encouraging female entrepreneurs to come and see me, because I'm saying, you know, I give of my time to try and, exactly what Sam says, try and guide you through the jargon, try and open up the marketplace from all my contacts and experience, because that seems to be lacking.
Right. Joanna, you sort of touched on this issue of almost like the image of the entrepreneur. I interviewed Debbie Wasco from Albright, and she made the point that one of the reasons why a lot of female leaders in growing growth businesses don't want to become the image of entrepreneurship is because they go through unreasonable rules in terms of having to be that. The way that everything from the way that the newspapers might photograph you, the questions you're asked. I mean, some of it sounds completely just off the scale. I mean, how do you change something like the EY Entrepreneur of the Year, which is one of the really big awards to win during the year? How do you reflect the change we're hearing about this morning?
So in terms of making sure that we reflect entrepreneurship more broadly, we have looked at changing the dynamics. So we've introduced specific categories. So we recognise rising stars, which is kind of businesses that are up to 7 years old, which gives us more scope to get more women in. So it comes to, where are the women today? How can we showcase more of them? One of those ways is to make sure that we're really recognising younger businesses, and therefore we get some of those. And that's where you see the change,
is it?
And we see, you know, I think some of that change. I think there are more women coming through, and the more that we can support. We run a programme called Entrepreneurial Winning Women. We run it across the world, but here we run it across Europe. Amanda is actually on it as one of our scale-up entrepreneurs on the programme. But it's really a programme and there's lots of programmes like that, I think. You know, the Stock Exchange run different programmes. It's bringing through those people, giving them the opportunity to network with each other, because I think one of the things that actually we see from the women is that, coming back to this balance and juggling act, is that I find, and it's great to see somebody here today, women are less likely to spare the time to network. It's kind of, the day job's really busy, I've got the entrepreneur, you know, I've got my role, I've got my CEO job, I've got to balance talent, customers, all those other things. And networking can be the thing that falls by the wayside. And I think networking is important because, firstly, it can be how you find your finance, it can be how you find your next big idea, but actually, really importantly, it can be how you find a friend that's been there 6 months before you. You know, that's the really important thing. Why do people not scale? Why do they not take the risk? Because they don't know anybody else that's done it, so they need to make the time.
Do you accept that? I mean, you know, think to what Helen has said, you know, that she's been on maternity and she heard, you know, the colleague that had said, oh, yeah, again, she said, a male founder would never go through that, right? I mean, these are very different circumstances to face.
They are, but I think it is changing. It will take longer. I think that aspect for entrepreneurs is going to take even longer to change than it has done in corporates. Corporates have to move in a certain way, and I think the finance community is catching up, but it is behind.
Linzi, are you working with female entrepreneurs right now?
So I have a school that I run globally. It's called the Business of Brand.
Yeah.
And we teach scale-ups and established businesses how to build a brand shift in industry. We have all different industries coming through. Sam came in, we have another couple of people, Anna, that have been through the programme. And we have a lot of females. I have to say that, look, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, and when I was young and I stood in a factory with only men there trying to manufacture shoes in Korea, I've always had a mindset of I can. I haven't ever allowed other things or other people to put blocks in my way. So I do slightly sit in environments.
What's the coping strategy, right? So, because other people will say that, you know, I've faced an immovable object. You know, you heard about that career thing. It's just a no. How do you get to a yes?
So I've always lived off what I want to be known for in this world. What's my driver? At a young age, I said, I'm going to be as big as Oprah Winfrey to my mum at age 12. I had a vision for growth. I had a vision for I can be on this world to shift a world, to build an ecosystem. There's no coping mechanism. It's a mindset. I believe that we can do this. I believe that entrepreneurs together can do this together. And if you allow people to tell you you can't, then you won't. If you go, I have a mindset that I am going to do this, you will.
So, Sam, when you see all the debate that we're hearing about, the winds of change going in everywhere that you see, things are changing. In terms of the role of advisory and specifically financial advisors, what's the change that it itself has to make? I mean, you're immensely unique in being a female leader in an overwhelmingly male-dominated industry. Well, how do you get more Sams?
Well, only one Sam's getting out there.
And don't give me AI as the answer. Right?
It's hard because we are trying to shape an industry that is very, very slow to move, historically doesn't really move, still very male-dominated. It's really hard. So that's why we're saying we need to be the game changers. And if we have to do it by bringing our own females through our system and see how it does, and then they go and set up other things, then great. But
is there something about the language? I mean, there was a point was made in the last panel, which is that I've gone and spoken to an advisor, I have no idea what they're talking about. Is there a kind of masculinity in the language, the advice, that needs to shift along with the change that's happening elsewhere?
And I don't think this is a specific female thing. I think this is an entrepreneur thing, and it's an issue of accessing finance as you're scaling, that it is a very jargon riddled world. It is a lot of bankers. They're quite often seen as quite aggressive. They're generally male. So not only does that put off a lot of women, it puts off a lot of entrepreneurs. And it is very technical. There's no one place where you can go to find out where you raise money, how you do it, what are the pitfalls in real simple language. What do I need to think about? What could happen to me? And not only what is right for me today, and totally, I believe in what Claire said, finding the right investor for you is absolutely vital, but also, are they the right one for 5-10 years' time? And is that going to screw up your plan?
Right. Lesley, you're nodding your head.
Yeah,
I mean, come in on that.
I absolutely, because I see quite a lot, not female, male-led growth companies. We see a lot in our firm come through, and I particularly sort of always try and see them and have an initial chat. And they are absolutely that. I need to raise, I've got $500,000 turnover. I'd like to raise 750K, $1 million. It's small where the institutions, Fancy and Claire and the VCs, it's too small for them. Where do I go? I need a few, do I just go to an angel network? There's no clear one place where they can go for advice and have that jargon free. And also, I think most of these businesses need someone who's going to bring value, bring something more than money to them. So it's finding the right cultural fit, whether that's male or female, and that's what a lot of these businesses struggle with.
But when you look, Sam, just back to you for a minute, when you look at last year, just one company out of 61 IPOs being led by a woman, how systemic is this? How far back? Is it just the case that actually this has been going on for so long that they just can't, we're just not getting enough of these female-led businesses through? And is it the case, to go back to what you were saying, that actually look at the kind of the seed bed now, and in 10 years' time it will be fine? Is it a waiting game in terms of seeing these female-led businesses come through now, especially to the public markets?
Well, you have to get them starting and scaling, and then being of the right size to IPO. So that is one thing. But it's also just this, recognising who's gone out there, tell the story. Was it that difficult? Did it suit that purpose? It's, an IPO is just one form of growth capital at the right time. It's very suitable for lots of things. It's not very suitable for lots of things. Is it put in the mix for everybody? No. Should it be? Yes. So we just need to get it into the conversation that it's a possibility. Don't be scared of it. The public profile puts a lot of people off. That's not actually the reality of a lot of what being on the public market is. There are huge benefits. We just need to get the real information out so you can make a choice.
Joanna, you wanted to come in, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I don't think it's just a waiting game. I think there are more, but that's why we need to work now to do things like this, to showcase the entrepreneurs, to give people the networks, so that the people coming through today will have a better chance of scaling up than they had before. So I wouldn't like to think that I think it is just a waiting game. I am absolutely sure it's not, unless we act to support and change things. And the thing I think is hugely different is when you come back to Lesley's point about it's those people that sit below where Claire is, who need money, a smaller amount to get going. It's that bit that I think is the most difficult bit for women, because there aren't very many female angel investors. So, and that's the really tough bit. And do you know the women.
Why on that, in terms of why there aren't that many? Because I've read that stat a lot.
I think it's very difficult. I think it does come back to women are more risk averse. So angel investing feels a more risky place to put your money than putting it somewhere in the bank. I think women have that mindset about the longer term future. They don't necessarily see the risk reward. They're nervous about the risk reward. And I think it's the same thing. I think, women don't network. We haven't formed the networks. There are some great places out there. You've got a DD here, you've got Angel Academ. There are some great places, but they're much smaller. I know someone at the moment who is trying to get to a 50-50 gender equal fundraise, but that I know that is proving bloody tough, frankly. Yeah. And that is part of your challenge, because if you are a female and you are going out to look for money and the market for where you're going to find it is predominantly male, that's pretty hard.
But you've got to do bold things, right? Now, I interviewed Pip Jameson this week. She's the founder of the DOTS. It's the kind of no-collar economy.
I just talked.
She's basically come up with a plan which goes something like this. She's going to have 60% females on her site. She's going to have 20% BME candidates on her site, and the rest are men. So she's taken a very bold leap to address the balance. Do more people need to start to be more active in how they address the gap?
So our whole business ethos is him, her. Everything that we lead with is the him, her conversation. My business partner, Darren, and I go out together and speak on stage together. And we talk about how two people come together to run a business, to go out culturally. And my belief is that if you just have female and you don't have male, then you're still missing the point. And so when we come together as a team, the power of it in the room is electric. It's interesting on the funding side of things, because when I was 21 and I raised money, I went out and I couldn't understand a word of what anybody was saying. They could have been speaking Chinese. And I needed to raise money within 6 months. And it was an absolute hellhole. And I managed to do it because I needed to get the production in the shops for a manufacturing thing. We just raised a couple of million for the business that I'm in now. And I have to say, actually, we raised from men. And the process, although it was a longish process, we raised from a family, and we did it very culturally, very an exceptional cultural fit, like you just said. They were hugely like-minded. He said, "Why do you want the money?" And I said, "Actually, I don't want the money. I want you as our partners." They're involved, but they're not so involved that they're strangling us, and actually I have to say it's been a good experience around it.
Right, because we're running short on time, but just a question to Sam and Lesley. Last week, Theresa May told house builders that it was a national duty for house builders to build more homes. Is there a national duty for advisory businesses to get the change that's going on in the world right now, to get the change that actually there are unrealised opportunities and potential that's not being fulfilled because finance isn't searching hard enough for the opportunities, and certain professions are disguising themselves in language to maintain the club? Lesley?
Yeah, I mean, I think whether there's a national duty, but I think we all need to work to use social media to have more influence out there. And this is just the female agenda. I think this is just to help the start-up and scale-up businesses generally. Let's be more jargon-free, let's be more open. Let's have sessions where you know, people don't think advisors are going to be charging them by the hour every time they come in through the door. I mean, there's a big barrier there. You know, let's give of our time. Let's help. Let's be more of a community. Is what I'd say. You know, we've got to, I think Irene said that too, we've got to use, we can use social media, we can influence more. Events like this are great, but we've got to all continue to be part of the story.
Sam, a more proactive opportunity? We
obviously think so, because we're doing this, but I do think it will be the new people, the disruptors, who start realising what's happening and what people need, that change the game, necessarily the existing advice that's out there. But I absolutely believe it will happen because the customer wants it.
Right. Last question. Ambition Nation. That's what we're here to discuss today. The last panel had a mixed view, to be fair, about what's going on with the nation, how ambitious it is at the moment. I'd just like to get a quick sort of run along the panel about how people feel about that. Maybe Lesley, we'll start with you this time, and we'll get more this way.
I mean, apart from the political uncertainties we face, we're seeing in our business a lot of optimism and a lot of ambition. And as I said, the more we work with the growth companies, the more inspiring
How
it is.
sustainable is that first part of the question?
Exactly, I know.
When does
but you know, we talk to these businesses and we're saying, you know, because I think talent is the big thing for us in our business, and talent retention and acquisition is the big thing in most growing businesses, frankly. And they don't see that. They are very optimistic about continuing to attract that talent.
Sam, optimism, funding,
I'm
growth.
totally optimistic, because I think entrepreneurs are, and I think it's a totally, like Linzi said, a mindset. That, you know, challenges bring opportunity. You either take the opportunity and make it work, or you give up and you fizzle out and die. And you know, it does create opportunity, and there is so much ambition out there, and there is so much funding.
Linzi.
I applaud Sam for starting this whole campaign, because people...
Round of applause, I think.
do.
There we go.
I applaud Sam for starting this campaign, because I believe that ambition is the one thing that will keep people going. And when you get the knocks, and when you get the you can't and this, that and the other, that is the one thing that drives people. And I have to say, we have 40 businesses coming through our school a month, and in Australia and so forth. And we find that when people think bigger, they drive themselves, and they are hugely ambitious to be bigger. So I think we are hugely ambitious as a nation.
Joanna, last point to you.
Yeah, no, I'm totally optimistic. I would agree with Sam. I think I see our entrepreneurs, and actually, you know, while the Brexit brings its challenges, I don't think it phases them. Its challenges what they thrive on. The change and the disruption is what makes them find the new thing to do.
Just to pick up very briefly, I mean, we talked about Australia there. You've got a firm that operates globally. When you look at ambition in this country compared to others, how comparable is it?
I think, it's quite interesting actually. Entrepreneur of the Year is a global programme. So once a year, I have the immense privilege of seeing entrepreneurs come together from 60 different countries. And I think it's the same. I think if you look at the entrepreneurial community, it is one community, and they share that ambition and drive to change the world.
Great, a tribal message there to finish with. Lesley, Sam, Linzi, Joanna, thank you very much. Cheers.